Hey guys, tonight we're traveling to the 19th century, to the heart of the Industrial Revolution in Victorian England. We're going to be leaving the world of farms and fields and entering the new, terrifying, and awe-inspiring world of the factory. We'll be stepping into the worn-out, soot-stained shoes of a factory worker and experiencing the daily, grinding reality of a life governed by the relentless rhythm of the machine. This is a story that lies beneath the grand narrative of progress. A tale of the immense human suffering that was the fuel for a new industrial age. A world of deafening noise, constant danger, and soul-crushing labor. And let's be perfectly honest. You, with your deep-seated belief in things like weekends, the 8-hour workday, and a minimum wage that isn't just a bowl of thin gruel, would not have lasted. Your modern expectation that a workplace shouldn't actively try to maim or poison you would be seen as a radical, and, frankly, hilarious. Political opinion. You'd be fired before your first tea break, assuming you even got one. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Your support is the coal in the furnace that keeps this channel running, and it's always deeply appreciated. And as is our tradition, I would love to see where you're all listening from tonight. Please post your city or country and the local time in the comments. It's always a wonderful thing to see our global community gathering for our nightly story. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Your world is one of green fields and open sky. You are a child of the English countryside. Your life is hard. There is no doubt about that. It is a life of agricultural labor, of working alongside your family to coax a meager living from a small plot of land. But it is a life with a certain rhythm, a rhythm dictated by the sun and the seasons. The air you breathe is clean. The water you drink is from a clear stream. Your world is small, but it is known. And then, that world is taken from you. You do not understand the great economic forces at play. You do not know about the new laws being passed in a distant parliament. The Enclosure Acts. All you know is that the common land at the edge of the village, the land where your family has grazed its single cow for generations, where you have gathered firewood and foraged for berries, is suddenly no longer common. A new fence appears, a wall of wood and stone. Enclosing the land, it now belongs to the local lord, the great man in the great house, who has decided that raising sheep for the new textile mills is more profitable than allowing peasants to subsist. This is a common historical fact that triggers the great migration of your age. Without access to the common land, your family cannot survive. Your small plot of land is not enough. You have been rendered obsolete. You have been enclosed out of your own life. There is no work here for you now. And so your family, like thousands of other families across the countryside, is faced with a terrible choice: stay here and starve, or abandon the only home you have ever known and walk to one of the great, new, and terrifying industrial cities. Where? It is rumored there is work for all. The stories that trickle back to your village about these cities are like tales from another world. They speak of immense buildings called factories, where great steam-powered machines weave cloth faster than 100 women ever could. They speak of regular wages, of money paid for work, a strange concept in your world of barter and subsistence. They speak of opportunity. The decision is made out of pure desperation. Your family packs its few meager belongings into a handcart. You say goodbye to the green fields, to the familiar stream, to the graves of your ancestors in the small churchyard, and you begin to walk. The journey takes weeks. You sleep in barns when a farmer is kind, or in ditches by the side of the road when one is not. You arrive in the great city of Manchester, and your first impression is not of opportunity, but of a descent into hell. You smell it first. A thick, acrid, sulfurous smell of burning coal hangs in the air. A permanent, choking fog that coats the back of your throat and makes your eyes water. This is the breath of the new age. and it is the smell of a million fires burning at once. Then you see it. The sky is not blue. It is a permanent, sickly, brownish-gray canopy of smoke, so thick that the sun is just a pale, distant wafer, a god that has been defeated by this new, man-made atmosphere. The buildings are not the gentle, weathered stone and thatch of your village. They are great, looming, soot-blackened brick boxes. Their hundreds of windows like dead, vacant eyes, and rising above them all are the great chimneys, the smokestacks of the factories, belching their thick, black poison into the sky. They are the new cathedrals, and they are temples dedicated to a new, hungry god of industry. Then you hear it, a sound so loud, so constant, so overwhelming that it feels like a physical pressure against your skull. It is the sound of the city. It is the deafening, rhythmic clank, clank, clank of thousands of machines, the hiss of steam, the rumble of iron-wheeled carts on the cobblestones, the shouts of thousands of people crammed together. There's no silence here. The quiet of the countryside is a forgotten memory. You and your family find lodging. It is a single, small, damp room in the cellar of a great, crumbling tenement building. It has no window. The floor is packed earth. The air is foul with the smell of mildew and the shared stench of the dozens of other families packed into the building above you. A single water pump in the filthy central courtyard, shared by 100 people, is your only source of water. Beside it is a single, overflowing privy, its contents leaching into the very ground from which the pump draws its water. Your father, a man who once knew the complex rhythms of the seasons, is now a wage laborer, his strength sold by the hour to a factory owner he will never meet. And you, a child of 10, are also expected to work. Your small size, your nimble fingers, are now a valuable commodity. Your father takes you, on your first morning, to a place that will become your entire world. It is a textile mill. It is a vast 6-story brick building, its windows dark with soot, its great chimney belching a constant stream of black smoke. You walk through the gates, and the noise hits you like a physical blow. It is a deafening, disorienting roar. The sound of 1,000 iron machines all moving at once. You have left the green fields behind. You have traded the open sky for a ceiling of smoke. You have entered the world of the factory and your horrifying new education. Your plight as a worker in the great, brutal machine of the Industrial Revolution is about to begin. You stand before the great brick factory, a 10-year-old child about to enter the world of adult labor. Your father pats you on the shoulder, a gesture that is meant to be reassuring but feels heavy with a grim necessity. Work hard, he says. Do as you are told, and be quick. You nod, your throat too tight to speak, and you follow a group of other children through the factory gates. You are led onto the main factory floor, and the world you knew vanishes, replaced by a new and terrifying reality. The room is vast, a forest of iron machinery, great leather belts, driven by a single, massive steam engine somewhere in the building's heart, run across the ceiling, turning hundreds of wheels and gears. The noise is a physical assault, a deafening, continuous roar so loud that it feels like a pressure on your chest, a vibration in your bones. The air is thick with a white, fluffy dust that hangs in the shafts of light from the high. Grimy windows. It coats your tongue and makes you want to cough. You are taken to the overseer, a hard-faced man with a leather strap tucked into his belt. He looks you over, not as a child, but as a piece of equipment. Your small size is your primary qualification. You're a piecer, he says, his voice a shout to be heard over the din. He points to a great, long machine called a spinning mule, a contraption hundreds of feet long with thousands of spindles, all moving back and forth, spinning raw cotton into thread. Your job, you learn, is one that only a child can do. The cotton threads. under the immense strain of the machine. Frequently snap. The machine does not stop. To stop it would be to lose money. Your task is to patrol the length of this iron monster, your eyes scanning the thousands of flying threads. When you see one break, you must dart in, your small, nimble fingers finding the two broken ends in the blur of motion. And, with a quick, practiced twist, tie them back together. You must do this while the carriage of the mule is moving, its heavy iron frame passing just inches from your head. Your first day is a blur of terror and confusion. You are clumsy. The threads are hard to catch. The overseer watches you, his eyes missing nothing. When you are too slow, he is there. The sting of his leather strap across your shoulders a sharp, painful reminder to be quicker. "Faster, you lazy whelp!" he shouts, his voice cutting through the roar. Time is money, my money. Some of the other children have an even more dangerous job. They are the scavengers. Their task is to crawl on their bellies under the grate, moving looms into the darkest, most dangerous parts of the machinery, to pick up the loose scraps of cotton that fall to the floor. You watch them. Small, ghost-like figures disappearing under the crashing. Pounding machines? You see a boy, no older than you, emerge. His face pale. After the great iron frame of the loom has passed just a fraction of an inch above his head. He was not quick enough one day last year. Another child tells you, and he lost 2 fingers on his left hand. Crushed in the gears. This is your new world. A world where the constant, looming threat of mutilation is a normal part of your workday. The machines are not your friends. They are hungry. Iron beasts, with no guards, no safety features. They do not care if your hand gets caught in their gears or if your hair gets tangled in their belts. Your job is to perform a delicate dance with death. 14 hours a day, the factory has a robust safety program. The main rule is don't get your limbs caught in the gears. It's a simple, elegant system that places a strong emphasis on personal responsibility. The hours are a form of torture in themselves. You arrive at the factory before the sun has risen, and you leave long after it has set. You are on your feet the entire time, pacing back and forth along the length of your machine. There is a single, brief break at midday for a meal. You sit on the filthy, oil-stained floor and eat the piece of stale bread and the small onion your mother packed for you. It is over in 15 minutes, and then the bell rings, and you are back to work. The exhaustion is a physical pain, a deep, grinding weariness that settles into your bones. Towards the end of the long day, your mind begins to drift. Your movements become slower, and that is when it is most dangerous. A moment of fatigue, a second of inattention, is all it takes for the machine to claim a finger, a hand, an arm. You see the fresh, bloody bandages on many of the other children. Badges of honor in a war they did not choose to fight. Discipline is maintained through fear. The overseer patrols the floor like a wolf. He is not paid to be kind. He is paid to maximize production. A child caught yawning is met with a sharp rap on the head. A child caught talking to another is fined a portion of their already pitiful wages. This is an obscure but common cruelty of the factory system. A complex system of fines for being late, for leaving waste, for being slow, could often mean that at the end of a long, hard week of labor, a child might receive almost no pay at all. This widespread use of child labor is a common historical fact of the Industrial Revolution. Children were cheap, they were compliant, and their small size was a genuine asset for certain tasks. But historians and economists will forever debate the forces that drove it. Was it purely the cynical greed of the factory owners, exploiting the most vulnerable part of the population? Or was it also driven by the desperate poverty of the working class itself? Your father takes your meager wages at the end of the week with a look of grim necessity on his face. He knows the danger you are in, but your few pennies are essential to keep the family from starving. It is a terrible choice. A choice between your safety and your family's survival at the end of your 14-hour shift. A great bell rings. The steam engine sighs and groans to a halt. The deafening roar of the factory floor is replaced by a strange, ringing silence. The ghost of the noise still echoing in your ears. You and the other children. A river of pale, exhausted and grimy figures. Pour out of the factory gates and into the dark. Gaslit streets. You trudge home. Your small body aching with a weariness that feels ancient. You are too tired to eat the thin gruel your mother offers you. You simply crawl onto the pile of rags in the corner of your cellar room that is your bed, and you fall into a heavy, dreamless sleep. The rhythmic clack, clack, clack of the great machine still pounding away in your head, and in the darkness. Just a few hours later, you are woken by a strange tapping sound on the single high window of your cellar. It is the knocker-up, a man whose job it is to walk the dark streets with a long pole, tapping on the windows of the factory workers to ensure they wake up in time for their 5 a.m. start. It is time to begin the entire cycle again. You lie there for a moment in the dark, listening to the tapping fade as he moves down the street. You are 10 years old. You have a full-time job. You are an adult, with adult dangers and adult responsibilities. But you have been robbed of your childhood. You look around at the darkness of your small, damp room. You listen to the coughing of your father in the corner, and you realize that this is your life now. It is a life measured not in seasons, but in the shrill blast of the factory whistle. It is a life spent in service to the relentless, deafening and ever-hungry roar of the machine. You are now a factory child, a small cog in the great, screaming machine of the Industrial Revolution. Your days are no longer measured by the rising and setting of the sun, but by the shrill, imperious blast of the factory whistle, and your life is lived against a new, constant, and inescapable soundtrack. It is the deafening roar of the machine. You step onto the factory floor each morning, and the sound hits you like a physical blow. It is not one sound, but a monstrous symphony of 100 different, terrible noises all layered on top of one another. A wall of sound so thick and so powerful that it seems to vibrate in the very marrow of your bones. The factory has a very unique and vibrant soundscape. It sounds like 100 blacksmiths having a violent argument inside a metal drum during a thunderstorm. It's very stimulating. The bass note, the deep, thudding heartbeat of this entire operation, comes from the steam engine. It is a great iron behemoth, housed in an adjacent room. Its massive piston driving a great flywheel that turns the belts and pulleys that power the entire factory. You feel its rhythm more than you hear it. A constant, low-frequency thump, thump, thump that shudders through the wooden floorboards and up through the soles of your bare feet. It is the pulse of the new industrial age, and it never, ever stops. Above this deep, foundational rhythm is the percussive clatter of the machines themselves. You work in the spinning room, but on your brief journey through the weaving shed, you have experienced the sound of the power looms. It is a sound of pure, concussive violence. It is the loud, sharp crash of the harnesses slamming up and down, the deafening thwack of the wooden shuttle being fired across the threads at incredible speed. Multiply this by 100 looms, all working at once in a single, vast room, and the result is a continuous, rolling explosion of sound, a noise so loud it feels like it is trying to break your skull open from the inside, in your own room, the spinning room. The sound is a different, but no less overwhelming, kind of torture. It is a high-pitched whining and screaming sound. It is the sound of thousands upon thousands of metal spindles, all spinning at an impossible speed. It is a sound that gets inside your ears and seems to scour them clean of all other sensation. Added to this is the constant, rhythmic, metallic screech of the great spinning mule's carriage as it rolls back and forth on its iron tracks. A sound like the world's largest and most disgruntled insect. And where are the human sounds in this mechanical orchestra? They are gone. They have been utterly vanquished by the roar of the machines. Normal conversation is impossible. To communicate with the person standing next to you, you must put your mouth directly against their ear and shout at the top of your lungs. Even then, the words are often lost. Snatched away by the overwhelming din, you and the other workers develop your own secret. Silent language? It is a language of gestures, of nods, of grimaces, of frantic hand signals. You learn to read lips, to understand a command from the overseer by the angry set of his jaw, rather than by the words you cannot possibly hear. The only human sounds that can successfully compete with the machine are the sharp, shrill blast of the overseer's whistle, and the sudden, piercing, high-pitched scream of a child who has not been quick enough. A child whose fingers have just been caught in the unforgiving gears. This constant, unrelenting noise has a profound physical effect on your body. At the end of your first day of work, you stumble out into the relative quiet of the evening, and you find that you cannot hear properly. The world sounds muffled, distant, as if you are underwater. And there is a constant, high-pitched ringing in your ears, a phantom echo of the spinning spindles. You think it will go away. It does not, after a few months. The ringing is a permanent part of your life. It is the first thing you hear when you wake up in the morning, and the last thing you hear before you fall into an exhausted sleep. This is tinnitus, the sound of your own hearing being destroyed. After a few years, you begin to notice that you are going deaf. You find yourself asking your family to repeat themselves, shouting what why yet them in your small cellar room. Your mother tells you to stop shouting, but you do not realize you are doing it. Your own voice sounds quiet and distant to you. You walk through the countryside on a rare Sunday off, and you see the birds in the trees singing, but you cannot hear them. The delicate sounds of the natural world have been permanently erased from your life, replaced by the eternal, internal ghost of the machine's roar. Working in the mill is great for your hearing. Specifically, it's great for making sure you won't have any left by the time you're 20. You'll never have to listen to anyone complain again. The noise is also a constant. Physical assault that keeps your nerves perpetually on edge. You live your entire workday in a state of high alert. Your body flooded with the hormones of stress and fear. The noise contributes to your profound exhaustion, making your movements clumsy and your mind slow. A dangerous combination in a room full of fast-moving, unguarded machinery. You cannot hear a belt beginning to fray before it snaps. You cannot hear the groan of a gear before it shatters. You cannot hear the warning cry of a fellow worker. You are living in a world of constant, deafening, and invisible danger. The great steam whistle of the factory is the clock by which your entire neighborhood lives. This obscure but vital piece of industrial technology is the factory's voice, a voice of absolute authority. It shrieks before dawn, a sound that can be heard for miles. Commanding you and thousands of others to rise from your beds, it shrieks to signal the brief midday break. And it shrieks again in the evening to announce that your 14 hours of labor are complete. You are born. You live. And you will likely die by the sound of the factory whistle. Social historians will one day debate the worker's own perception of this noise. Did they, through long exposure, become acclimatized to it, able to mentally block it out in order to function? Or was it a source of constant, acknowledged torment? The very fact that a form of sign language developed among factory workers, and the high rates of permanent deafness recorded in these communities, suggests that while you may have learned to endure the noise, you could never truly escape its destructive impact. You stand at your post by the spinning mule. The high-pitched whine of the spindles drills into your brain. The great iron carriage screeches back and forth, a monstrous, rhythmic predator. The roar of the room is a physical thing, a pressure, a force that isolates you in your own small bubble of noise. You see the mouths of the other children moving, but you hear no words. The world is a silent movie, played out against a soundtrack of 1,000 screaming machines. You leave the factory at the end of the day, your ears ringing, your body vibrating with the ghost of the machine's rhythm. You walk out into the quiet of the industrial city. But the roar does not leave you. It has taken up permanent residence inside your own head. You have learned the first great, brutal lesson of the factory you can leave the machine at the end of the day. But the sound of the machine will never, ever leave you. You have learned to live inside the roar, the deafening. Endless noise of the factory has become the soundtrack to your life. A permanent ringing in your ears that you carry with you even in the quiet of your cellar room. The sound is a constant assault, but it is not the greatest danger you face. The greatest danger is the machine itself. You stand at your post. A small, 10-year-old child in a forest of giant iron machinery. The spinning mule you tend is 100 feet long. A self-acting machine that moves with a terrifying life of its own. Its great iron carriage slides back and forth on its tracks. A relentless, rhythmic predator. The air is filled with the blur of thousands of spinning spindles and the dizzying motion of hundreds of pulleys and leather belts. And none of it is guarded. This is the great, unstated truth of your workplace. The men who built these machines, the owners who bought them. They were concerned with one thing and one thing only: production, efficiency, profit. The idea of spending extra money to put a simple iron guard over a set of gears, or a cage around a drive belt, would have been seen as a foolish and unnecessary expense. The safety of the workers, especially the children, was not a factor in their calculations. The factory's main safety feature is you. Specifically, your ability to jump out of the way very, very quickly. It's an employee-driven safety initiative, and so your entire 14-hour day is a long, intricate, and deadly dance with the machine. As a piecer, your job is to dart in and out of the moving parts, your small hands retying the broken threads. Your timing must be perfect. You learn to judge the rhythm of the machine, the precise moment when the carriage has reached the end of its travel, giving you a few precious seconds to do your work before it comes sliding back. One afternoon, you are tired. The exhaustion is a heavy, woolly fog in your brain. You misjudge the timing by a fraction of a second, as you are leaning in to catch a broken thread. The great iron carriage begins its return journey. You feel the wind of its passage as it slides past, its iron frame missing your head by less than an inch. You stumble back, your heart hammering against your ribs, a cold sweat on your skin. The machine did not notice you. It did not care. It would have crushed your skull with the same indifferent force it uses to spin its thread. You look at the other children, and you see the other dangers. You see the scavengers, the smallest children in the mill, crawling on their bellies in the dark. Filthy space under the grate. Clattering power looms. Their job is to pick up the fallen scraps of cotton. They must time their movements perfectly, scuttling in and out between the cycles of the pounding machinery. You see a young girl, no older than 7, her face pale and smudged with grease, emerge from under a loom just as the great wooden batten comes crashing down. A sound like a thunderclap. In the exact spot where her head was a moment before, the long, thick leather belts that connect the machines to the overhead drive shafts are a particular menace. They move at high speed, dark, slapping, hypnotic ribbons of motion. Sometimes, under the immense strain, a belt will snap. The sound is like a gunshot, and the heavy leather strap, now a free and wild thing, will whip through the air with incredible force. Capable of breaking a man's bones or splitting his head open, the greatest danger for the girls who work here is their hair. A single, loose strand of long hair, caught in a spinning shaft or a moving belt, can be a death sentence. One day, you hear a scream that cuts through even the roar of the factory. It is a scream of a different quality, a sound of pure agony and terror. You look over and see a girl, her face a mask of blood, being pulled away from a machine, her long hair, which had come loose from its bun, had been caught in the machinery, and her entire scalp has been torn from her head. The injury is horrifyingly common, a known and accepted risk of the job. When an accident happens, the great machine does not stop. To stop the steam engine, to halt the production of 100 looms, would be to lose money. The injured child is simply carried off the factory floor, taken to the infirmary if the mill is a large one, or more often, just sent home to be tended to by their family. There is no investigation. There are no new safety measures installed. The child is simply replaced. There is a line of other hungry, desperate children at the factory gate, all waiting for a chance to take the same dangerous job. Historians will one day debate the ideologies that allowed this brutal system to flourish. Was it the pure, cold logic of laissez-faire capitalism? Was it a form of social Darwinism that viewed the lives of the poor as inherently expendable, or was it a simple, callous indifference? A willful ignorance on the part of the wealthy middle and upper classes? The official reports of the factory inspectors, the blue books of Parliament, will be filled with page after page of horrifying testimony, detailing the maiming and killing of thousands of children. But the political will to enact real change will be slow, fought every step of the way by the powerful factory owners. And then, one day, it is your turn. You are at your post. It is late in the day, the 14th hour of your shift. The gas lamps have been lit, casting a flickering, inadequate, yellow light over the great, roaring room. You are numb with exhaustion. Your movements are automatic. A thread snaps. You dart in, as you have done 10,000 times before. But you are a fraction of a second too slow. Your mind is dull. Your body is aching. As you are reaching for the thread, the carriage begins its return. You try to pull your hand back, but it is too late. The tip of your left index finger is caught between two of the grate, moving iron gears. The pain is a sudden, sharp, and sickening crunch. It is a pain so intense and so surprising that for a moment, you do not even scream. You just look down at your hand, at the mangled, bloody ruin where the tip of your finger used to be. Then the scream comes. The overseer is there. He pulls you away from the machine. He does not look concerned. He looks annoyed. You are now a damaged piece of equipment. He wraps your hand in a dirty rag. Go home, he says, his voice impatient, and be back tomorrow, or there'll be no job for you. You stumble home through the dark streets, cradling your crushed hand, your body shaking with shock and pain. Your mother cleans the wound as best she can, her face a mask of silent grief. There is no doctor to set the bone. She simply binds it tightly. You are lucky. You have only lost the tip of a finger. Many lose a hand, an arm. Their life, but you are now permanently marked by the machine. You return to work the next day. Your hand a throbbing ball of fire. You learn to do your job with your other hand. And with the remaining fingers of your left, you are slower now, you are less efficient, and your pay is cut accordingly. If you get injured on the job, the company has a comprehensive compensation plan. They allow you to keep your job, but at a lower wage because you are now less efficient. You are 11 years old, and you are a veteran of an industrial war. You look at your bandaged, maimed hand, and you look at the great, relentless, and indifferent machine that you must continue to serve. You have learned that the factory does not just consume your childhood, your hearing, and your time. It consumes your body itself, piece by painful, bloody piece. The great steam whistle shrieks its final. Piercing command of the day, the roaring, clattering, screaming symphony of the factory floor winds down, leaving a ringing silence in your ears that is almost as loud as the noise was. The great iron machines fall still. Your 14-hour shift is over. You join the great, gray river of exhausted humanity that pours out of the factory gates. You are a child of 11, but you feel like an old man. Your body is a constellation of aches and pains. Your back, from stooping all day. Your legs, from standing for 14 hours. And your left hand, now a bandaged, misshapen thing, throbs with a deep, permanent, grinding pain from the encounter with the machine that took your fingers. You trudge home through the dark, narrow streets of the industrial city. The air is thick with the familiar smell of coal smoke and chemical filth. The only light comes from the flickering, uncertain glow of the gas lamps, which cast long, dancing shadows and make the familiar. Grimy brick buildings seem monstrous. The gin palaces are already spilling their light and their noise out into the street. Along with the occasional drunken brawler, you turn off the main street and into the labyrinth of alleys and courts that is your neighborhood, and you arrive at your home. It is a vast, soot-blackened brick tenement building, a human hive packed with hundreds of other families just like yours. It is a back-to-back, a uniquely miserable form of Victorian housing. The building has no back windows, no rear exit, no possibility of a through breeze. It is a sealed box, designed by a landlord you will never meet to cram the maximum number of rent-paying bodies into the minimum possible space. You make your way down a set of steep, slimy stone steps to the cellar. This is your apartment. Your family, you, your parents, and your 3 younger siblings live in a single subterranean room. You push open the door, and the familiar smell of your home envelops you. It is the smell of damp earth, of mildew that grows in black patches on the walls, of boiled cabbage, of unwashed bodies, and of the coal smoke from the small, inefficient fireplace that never seems to draw properly. The room is dark, even during the day. The only natural light comes from a single, small iron grate at street level, a window that looks out onto the filthy boots of the people passing by on the pavement above. The room is perhaps 12 feet by 12 feet. This single space is your kitchen, your dining room, your living room, and your bedroom. In one corner is the small fireplace where your mother cooks. In another corner is a pile of straw and rags. This is the family bed, a single. Rough-hewn wooden table and 2 stools are the only furniture. The floor is packed. Damp earth. You have a charming cellar apartment with rustic earthen floors and a natural, year-round water feature, also known as the leak in the wall. It has a very cozy, dungeon-like ambiance. The amenities are shared, and they are horrifying. You go out into the small, enclosed central courtyard of the tenement building to get water. In the center of this muddy, filth-strewn yard stands a single, iron water pump. This one pump provides all the water for the 20 other families who live in this building. Perhaps 200 people in all. The water it draws is from a shallow well, and it is cloudy and has a faint, unpleasant metallic taste. Just a few feet away from the water pump stands the other great shared facility, the privy. It is a single, wooden shack, unimaginably foul, overflowing with the waste of 200 people. The stench that emanates from it in the summer heat is a physical, malevolent presence. The ground around it is a permanent, stinking quagmire. And, with a simple, practical certainty that the contents of this overflowing privy are constantly seeping through the soil and into the very same shallow well from which your family draws its drinking water. Your building has a shared bathroom facility. It's a wooden shed in the courtyard. It's shared with 200 other people. There's usually a line. The neighborhood has a real sense of community. For example, everyone shares the same water pump, which is conveniently located right next to the overflowing toilet pit. It's a great way to share everything. This is the central, terrible truth of your home life. It is a perfect, self-contained ecosystem for disease. The overcrowding, the lack of ventilation, the contaminated water, the non-existent sanitation. It is a world that seems scientifically designed to breed sickness. You come back inside and your mother is preparing the evening meal. You watch her face, which you remember as being young and full of life in the countryside. is now pale, gaunt, and perpetually tired. Her hands are raw from the harsh lye soap she uses to try and keep your few clothes clean. Her life is an endless, unwinnable war against the filth and the squalor of this room. You see your father sitting by the fire. He, too, is a ghost of the man he once was. His body is stooped from his own 12-hour day of heavy labor at the docks. He has a deep, persistent cough from the coal dust, and his eyes have a distant, hollow look. Sometimes, on the rare occasion he has a few extra pennies. He will not come straight home, but will go to the gin palace on the corner. The gin they sell there is a cheap, often adulterated poison, made with turpentine or even sulfuric acid. It offers a few hours of loud, violent oblivion, a brief, destructive escape from a life that is otherwise unbearable. Historians will one day debate the causes of this urban squalor. Was it simply the inevitable, chaotic byproduct of a period of unprecedentedly rapid industrialization, as millions of people flooded into cities that were utterly unprepared for them? Or was it the direct result of a prevailing laissez-faire ideology, a political and economic system that saw no role for government in regulating housing or ensuring public health, a system that allowed landlords and factory owners to profit from the misery of the poor? The answer, you know from your own lived experience, is that it is both. It is a perfect storm of social change and official indifference. You eat your evening meal. It is a thin, watery stew of potatoes and onions, with a few small, questionable pieces of fatty meat. You huddle together on the floor around the fire, a small island of fragile family warmth in a cold, damp world. After the meal, it is time for sleep. There are no beds, no privacy. You all lie down together on the single, large pile of straw and rags in the corner. You huddle together for warmth, your body pressed against those of your parents and your siblings. You lie there, and you listen to the sounds of your home, the drip of water from the damp stone wall, the scratching of the rats, your constant, unseen roommates, the coughing of your father. And from the rooms above you, you can hear the sounds of the other families packed into this human hive, the crying of a sick baby, the drunken shouting of a man, the weary, muffled sounds of a life without hope. You have escaped the factory, but you have only traded the loud, roaring, dangerous hell of the machine for the quiet, damp, and diseased hell of your home. You realize, Wine, with a clarity that is as cold and as hard as the floor beneath you, that for a person like you, there is no sanctuary, there is no escape. Your life is a prison, and the factory and the slum are just two different cells within the same vast and inescapable institution. Your hand throbs with a dull, permanent ache, a constant reminder of the machine's hungry bite. Your ears are filled with a phantom roar that never ceases. Your body is a vessel of profound, bone-deep exhaustion. But your workday is over. You trudge through the dark, soot-stained streets and return to your small, damp cellar room, and now you must face the next challenge in your daily battle for survival. You must eat. In the countryside, food was a simple, if sometimes scarce, reality. It was the milk from your own cow, the potatoes from your own garden, the berries from the hedgerow. It was fresh. It was real. Here, in the great, teeming, industrial city, food is something else entirely. It is a commodity. It is something you must purchase with the few. Precious pennies you have earned from your long week of dangerous labor. You have traded a life of subsistence for a life of dependence. And you soon learn that the food available to the city's working poor is a new and insidious kind of poison. Your diet is a monotonous and miserable rotation of the cheapest, most calorie-dense foods available. Your breakfast, eaten before you head out into the pre-dawn darkness, is a bowl of thin, watery gruel, usually made from coarse oatmeal. It is bland, it is tasteless, but it is hot, and it fills the empty space in your stomach for a few hours. Your midday meal, Eaten on the filthy floor of the factory is the one you carry with you, a thick wedge of bread, and, if you are lucky, a small raw onion that you eat like an apple. It's sharp. Fiery taste, a welcome jolt of sensation in a world of blandness. Your evening meal, the main meal of the day, is a variation on the same theme. It is usually a pile of boiled potatoes, the cheapest and most reliable source of calories in the city. Sometimes, your mother will have managed to buy a small piece of fatty bacon or a cheap offcut of meat, which she will boil with the potatoes to create a thin, greasy soup that you will all share. The cornerstone of your entire diet, the staff of your life, is bread. But the bread you eat is not the wholesome, crusty loaf you might imagine. It is the cheapest bread available from the back alley bakeries. It is heavy, it is dense, and it is often strangely white. And this is where you encounter the most horrifying and secret truth of the food you eat. It is a world of rampant, unchecked, and often dangerous food adulteration, in a city where thousands of people need to be fed as cheaply as possible, and where there are no laws to protect the consumer. The opportunities for a dishonest shopkeeper to increase his profits are endless. The bread has a unique, gritty texture, thanks to the secret ingredient plaster from the construction site down the road. It's very high in calcium and despair. You learn to recognize the signs. The bread is strangely heavy because the baker has mixed cheap, heavy substances into the flour to increase its weight. Common additives include chalk, ground up beans, and even plaster of Paris. The bread is strangely white because the baker has added alum, a chemical that bleaches the low-quality flour, making it look like the expensive white bread eaten by the rich. Milk is another field for the dark arts of the adulterator. The fresh, creamy milk you remember from the countryside is a distant memory. The milk you buy here, from a man with a cart in the street, is a thin, bluish, watery liquid. It has been diluted with water, often drawn from the same contaminated pumps that cause so much sickness. To hide this dilution, the seller will add chalk or other white powders to make it look opaque and creamy. You hear whispers that some of the most unscrupulous milkmen even add mashed sheep's brains to their product to simulate the texture of cream. Your tea, the one small comfort of your day, is not safe either. You buy the cheapest black tea available, but you notice it has a strange metallic taste. You learn that it is common practice for sellers to buy used tea leaves from the kitchens of the wealthy, dry them out, and then recondition them for sale to the poor. They mix the used leaves with sheep's dung and black lead dust to restore their dark color and their weight. You're enjoying a nice cup of tea. It's a special blend of recycled tea leaves, dust, and a hint of sheep droppings for that authentic, rustic flavor. It's artisanal. Even the small treats that your younger siblings might cry for are a source of danger. You see a vendor selling brightly colored sweets. The vibrant reds and greens are beautiful, but you know that those colors are not from fruit. They are from chemicals. The brilliant green is often from copper arsenite, a compound containing arsenic. The bright red is from red lead, a lead oxide. The sweets are beautiful, popular, and poisonous. This is the terrible reality of your diet. You are working a 14-hour day of grueling, dangerous labor, and you are refueling your exhausted body with food that is not only lacking in nutrition, but may be actively poisoning you. Food safety regulations are very straightforward. The main rule is buyer beware. Also, try not to think too hard about what's actually in that sausage. It's a system built on trust and a high tolerance for poison. An obscure but terrifying part of this world is the knacker's yard. This is where the old, worn-out horses from the city's carts and omnibuses are taken to be slaughtered. Their meat is not considered fit for human consumption and is meant to be used for dog food or other industrial purposes. But the knacker's yards have a back door, and this cheap. Often diseased horse meat frequently finds its way into the city's food supply. minced up and disguised in the cheap meat pies and sausages sold by street vendors to the poorest of the poor. Every time you buy a penny pie, you are taking a gamble on its contents. Historians will one day debate the overall effect of this new industrial diet. The pessimist school will argue that the move from the countryside to the city represented a nutritional catastrophe, a loss of access to fresh, wholesome food, replaced by a monotonous, adulterated, and unhealthy urban diet. The optimist school might argue that the city, for all its horrors, at least provided a consistent, if low quality, supply of calories, protecting the poor from the total famines that could strike the countryside. But you are not a historian, you are just a hungry child, and your stomach aches with a dull, constant pain that is a mixture of hunger and the slow, grinding work of trying to digest the plaster in your daily bread. You sit with your family in your damp cellar room. The single room smells of boiled turnips and coal smoke. The meal is on the table, a few boiled potatoes and a loaf of the gritty. Unnaturally white bread. You are all exhausted. You eat in silence. You know that this meager, possibly poisoned meal is all that stands between you and starvation. It is the fuel that will allow you to get up tomorrow morning and return to the factory. To earn the few pennies required to buy another loaf of this same bread, you look at your family's pale, thin faces in the dim light of the single tallow dip. You look at your own bandaged, mutilated hand. You feel the permanent, low-level ache in your stomach, and you realize that in this new world you inhabit, everything is designed to consume you. The machine consumes your time and your body. The city consumes your health with its filth and its bad air, and the very food you eat, the substance that is meant to sustain you, is just another part of the great industrial machine that is slowly, methodically, grinding you down. You live in a world of interlocking, inescapable miseries. The factory consumes your body with its roaring, dangerous machinery, your home. A damp cellar in an overcrowded slum offers no comfort, only more filth and despair. The very food you eat, the gritty bread and thin gruel, is a low-grade poison that saps your strength. Your body and your spirit are worn down. Your defense is broken. Your community is a field of dry tinder, waiting for a single, stray spark, and in the heat of a long, miserable summer. That spark arrives. It is the cholera. It begins as a rumor, a whisper of a particularly vicious sickness in the courts and alleys a few streets over. They say a man was healthy in the morning and dead by supper time. They say it is a blue sickness, that it leaves the body shrunken and strange. At first, you pay it little mind. Sickness and death are constant companions in your neighborhood. The summer flux is a familiar, if unwelcome, visitor every year. But this is different. The next day, 2 of your neighbors in the tenement building are taken ill. By nightfall, one of them is dead. The next morning, 6 more. The rumor has become a wildfire. It sweeps through the crowded, unsanitary streets of your slum with a speed and a fury that is unlike anything you have ever seen. You see it happen to the family in the room next to yours. The father, a strong dock worker, is seized by it. The sickness is violent and terrifyingly swift. It is not a gentle fading, it is a catastrophic emptying of the body. He is racked with waves of vomiting, and a form of diarrhea so severe and so watery that it is called rice water stool. His body expels all of its life-sustaining fluid in a matter of hours. You see him in the afternoon. He is a shrunken, withered husk of the man he was that morning. His skin has taken on a strange, bluish-gray tint from the severe dehydration. His eyes are sunken deep into his skull. His voice is a weak, rasping whisper. And then he is gone. This is the great, terrifying reality of the cholera epidemics that swept through the industrial cities of the 19th century. Caused by a bacterium in the contaminated water supply, it was a disease that could kill a healthy adult faster than almost any other. Panic grips your neighborhood. This is not a normal sickness. This feels like a judgment from God, a pestilence of biblical proportions, and your understanding of it is filtered through the lens of the miasma theory. The authorities, the physicians, the priests, they all tell you that the disease is carried in the foul air, in the stench rising from the overflowing privies and the filthy river. To fight the disease, you must fight the smell, a strange, new atmosphere settles over the city. Great bonfires are lit in the streets, their plumes of smoke mixing with the ever-present coal smog in a futile attempt to purify the air. The city authorities send carts around, not with water, but with lime, which is spread in the gutters and alleys. The sharp, caustic smell of the lime adding another layer to the city's already complex stench. Men walk through the streets, swinging censers filled with foul-smelling burning tar or sulfur, believing that one bad smell might drive out another. But the sickness is not in the air. It is in the water. It is in the single, shared water pump in your building's courtyard. The pump whose well is fed by the ground, soaked with the filth from the privy just a few feet away. Every time a thirsty person takes a drink, they are drinking a dose of deadly poison. But you do not know this. You only know fear. One day, you see a strange sight. A well-dressed gentleman, clearly not from your neighborhood, is walking slowly through your courtyard. He is not a priest or a city official. He is asking questions. He goes from door to door, asking each family, "Who is sick here? Who has died? And where do you get your water?" He spends a long time looking at the communal water pump, a thoughtful, worried expression on his face. You and your neighbors watch him. Suspicious. What does this strange man want? Why is he so interested in the pump? You are witnessing, without knowing it, a quiet revolution. The man is a representation of a real historical figure, a doctor like John Snow of London. He is one of a new breed of scientific investigators who do not believe the old theories about miasma. He believes the disease is being spread by some other means. And he is gathering data, making a map of the sickness. A map that will eventually lead him to the truth that the source of the plague is this single contaminated water pump. His work will one day save millions of lives and give birth to the modern science of epidemiology. But for now, his work is an obscure and strange mystery to you. A brief, puzzling interruption in your daily terror. Historians will later debate the great public health revolution. Was it the work of these brilliant individual scientists that defeated diseases like cholera? Or was it the great, impersonal, and expensive work of civic engineering, the eventual construction of massive, citywide sewer systems and clean water pipelines that truly saved the cities? But this debate is a century in your future. Your reality is the here and now, and the sickness has come to your own door. Your youngest sister, a small girl of 6, awakens with the familiar, terrible cramps. Your mother is thrown into a frantic, desperate battle to save her. She tries every folk remedy she knows. She brews teas from what few herbs she has. She prays. She tries to get the girl to drink water, the very water that is poisoning her. You are all trapped in that single, small, damp room with the dying child. The smell of sickness, a smell you now know all too well, fills the small space. There is no escape from it. You watch, helpless, as your sister's small body is consumed by the disease, as she wastes away before your very eyes. And by nightfall, she is gone. There is no time for a proper funeral. The death cart is making its rounds. You hear its slow, creaking wheels in the street, and the cry of the driver, your father, his face a mask of stone, wraps your sister's small body in a simple cloth. He carries her up the cellar steps, and he places her on the cart. Alongside the other victims of the day, it is a scene of such profound, quiet heartbreak that it will be seared into your memory forever. the epidemic eventually burns itself out. It came on like a wildfire, and it departs just as quickly, leaving behind a neighborhood that has been decimated. There are empty rooms in your tenement now. There are families with missing faces. The fear recedes, replaced by a deep, hollowed-out grief. You have survived. Your family, though wounded, has survived, but you have learned another of the terrible lessons of this industrial world. The factory, with its hungry machines, can take your fingers and your hearing. The city itself, with its beautiful, modern, scientific progress, with its promise of a new life, can take everything else. The very water that is meant to sustain you can be a vessel of a swift and terrible death. You have survived the cholera, but you are left with the cold, hard knowledge that you are living in a man-made plague pit, and it is only a matter of time before the next great sickness comes calling. The cholera has passed. A great and terrible wave that has washed through your neighborhood, leaving grief and empty rooms in its wake. Your family has lost a child, a wound that will never heal. But the great machine of the city does not stop for grief. The factory whistle still shrieks in the pre-dawn darkness, and you must return to your post. The fear of sickness is replaced by the more immediate and constant fear of the foreman. You are older now, a teenager. Your body is no longer that of a small child. You are wiry and tough. Your muscles hardened by years of labor. You have been promoted. You are no longer a piecer, darting along the spinning mule. You are now strong enough to be an assistant at one of the great power looms. Working under a skilled adult weaver, the work is different, but the fundamental reality of your life remains the same. You are governed by the absolute authority of the overseer, the foreman. A man whose own livelihood depends on his ability to squeeze the maximum amount of work from you and everyone else on this floor. His rule is not one of gentle encouragement. It is a reign of petty tyranny, enforced by a sophisticated system of fines and the constant threat of physical abuse. Nailed to a grimy pillar in the center of the factory floor is a long, fly-spotted list of the factory's rules and the corresponding fines for breaking them. It is a catalog of your potential failures. There is a fine for being late, even by a single minute. There is a fine for being caught speaking to your neighbor. There is a fine for leaving your post without permission, even to use the foul latrine. There is a fine for being found with a dirty machine at the start of your shift. There is a fine for producing a piece of cloth with a slight imperfection. The fines are arbitrary, they are steep, and they are deducted directly from your already pitiful weekly wage. It is a system designed to ensure that you are always in debt, always one step behind. A system that transforms your small human errors into profit for the factory owner, while you are now too big to be casually beaten with a strap like the small children. The threat of violence is always there. The foreman is a large, intimidating man with a short temper. You see him deliver a sharp, backhanded blow to a man who dares to argue with him. You see him shove a worker who is not moving fast enough. You learn to keep your head down, to make yourself invisible, to never, ever talk back. But the foreman's greatest weapon is not his fist or the list of fines. It is the gate of the factory itself. Every morning, a great crowd of other desperate souls gathers at the gate, begging for a day's work. They are the unemployed. The newly arrived from the countryside or from famine-stricken Ireland. They are a permanent, visible reminder of your own expendability. You know that if you complain, if you are too slow, if you are sick too often. The foreman can dismiss you in an instant, and there will be 10 other people, hungrier and more desperate than you, ready to take your place at the loom by the end of the day. You are not a person. You are a replaceable part in the great machine. You witness the brutal truth of this one afternoon. You are working at your loom. The man at the next loom, a man named Thomas you have known for years, is tired. It is late in a long shift. He makes a small, careless mistake. His hand is caught in the great crashing mechanism of the machine. You hear his scream. a sound of pure agony that somehow cuts through the deafening roar of the room. The machine grinds to a halt, jammed by his own body. The overseer is there in an instant, his face a mask of pure fury. He is not angry about the injury. He is angry about the stoppage in production. Thomas is pulled from the machine, his arm a mangled, bloody ruin, the bones clearly shattered. He is in shock, his face pale as death. He is helped from the factory floor by 2 other workers. He is fired before he has even left the building. He is now a one-armed man with no job, no income, and no way to feed his family. There is no compensation. There is no pension. There is no charity. His working life is over. The next morning, there is a new man at his loom, a young, strong, and desperate-looking immigrant. Thomas. The man you knew has simply vanished, erased from the factory's memory. You look at the new man, and you look at your own hands, and you understand the foreman's rule completely. You are valuable only as long as you are functional. The moment you break, you are discarded and replaced. The company sees you as a valuable asset. To be precise, your value is exactly the cost of hiring the next desperate person waiting at the factory gate, minus the cost of the bread you eat. They've done the math. This is the world that historians will one day try to understand. They will debate the ideologies that allowed it to exist. They will talk of laissez-faire economics, of the cold calculus of capitalism, of a society that had not yet developed a social conscience. But you are not living in a theory. You are living in the reality. A reality where your life is worth less than the machine you operate. Sometimes, the brutality of the system takes on a surreal, almost superstitious quality. You hear a story from the engine room, an obscure but telling detail of factory life. The great steam engine, a complex and temperamental beast, has broken down. The factory owner has been forced to hire a skilled and very expensive engineer from London to fix it. The engineer is struggling to find the problem. The foreman, in a fit of frustration at the lost production, reportedly had one of the small scavenger boys brought to the engine room and beaten in front of the silent machine, as if the boy's punishment could somehow scare the machine back into working. As you grow older, you see the long-term effects of this life on the bodies of the adult workers. You see the weavers, their backs permanently stooped, their chests hollow from breathing the cotton dust. You see the dyers, their hands and arms permanently stained with toxic chemicals, their bodies racked with strange illnesses. You see the grinders in the metalworking factories, their lungs destroyed by the metal dust, a condition known as grinder's disease. The factory is a place that consumes its workers slowly, over years, hollowing them out from the inside. You have survived. You have learned the rules. You keep your head down. You work hard. You ignore the pain in your mangled hand and the ringing in your ears. You have internalized the foreman's rule. You have accepted your own expendability. But you hear things. In the brief midday break, sitting on the filthy floor, you hear the men whispering. They speak in low, angry tones. They speak of the injustice of it all. They speak of the vast wealth of the factory owners and the desperate poverty of the people who create that wealth. And they speak a new, dangerous word. A word like union? They whisper about banding together, about demanding fairer wages, about refusing to work until their conditions are improved. It is a foolish, dangerous dream. You know what happens to men who cause trouble? They are dismissed. They are blacklisted. They are cast out. But still, the whisper of it is a tiny, fragile spark in the immense, oppressive darkness of your world. You have lived your life under the foreman's brutal rule, but you are beginning to wonder if there might be another way, a way to fight back. You are no longer a child. The years of toil in the factory have hardened your body and your spirit. You are a young adult now, a veteran of the Industrial War. Your hands scarred, your ears perpetually ringing. You have learned to survive. You have learned to keep your head down, to work until your body is a numb machine of pure motion, to expect nothing more from life than your meager weekly wage in the brief. Exhausted oblivion of sleep, you have accepted your lot. The foreman's rule is the only law you know. But a new and dangerous idea is beginning to whisper through the deafening roar of the factory floor. It is a whisper carried in the brief. Stolen conversations during the midday break. In the dark corners of the taverns after a long shift. It is the idea that this world of suffering is not a natural or divine order. It is an order created by men, the factory owners, the landlords, the politicians, and what is made by men can be unmade by men. It is the idea of resistance. It starts with a secret meeting. An older worker, a man known for his radical ideas and is well-thumbed. Illicit pamphlets. Invites you to a gathering, you go. Your heart a mixture of fear and estrange. New curiosity. The meeting is held in the damp, crowded cellar of a beer house, in the flickering light of a few tallow dips. A dozen or so men from your factory have gathered. You listen as they speak. Their voices are low, angry, but filled with a passion you have never heard before. They speak of the long hours, the dangerous machines, the paltry wages. They speak of the fines, of the foreman's abuse, of the children who have been maimed and killed. And they speak of a new idea solidarity. They speak of forming a combination, a union, a brotherhood of workers who will stand together and demand a better life. It is an illegal act, the Combination Acts, passed by a distant parliament, have declared any such group a criminal conspiracy. But the men here are desperate, and their desperation is stronger than their fear of the law. You are swept up in their energy. For the first time in your life, you feel a flicker of hope, a sense that you are not just a helpless cog in a machine, but a man who might have some small power over his own destiny. The catalyst for action comes a few weeks later. The factory owner, a wealthy man you have never seen, announces a cut in your wages. The price of bread has risen, and now your pay is to be reduced. A new wave of anger and despair sweeps through the workforce. Your secret union decides that the time for whispers is over. The time for action has come. They call for a turnout, a strike. The morning of the strike is the most terrifying and exhilarating morning of your life. The great factory whistle shrieks at 5 a.m., its call echoing through the dark. Sleeping streets, you and your family rise. You walk to the factory. But this morning, you do not go through the gates. You join a growing crowd of a few hundred other workers. Standing in the muddy street before the factory, your arms linked. The machines inside are silent. For the first few hours, there is a feeling of incredible power. You have done it. You have withdrawn your labor. You have stopped the great machine. You have a voice. Then the factory owner arrives, accompanied by your foreman. He is a wealthy man in a fine wool coat and a tall beaver hat. He does not look concerned. He looks annoyed, as if he is dealing with a piece of faulty equipment. He stands before you and reads a statement. You are all in violation of your work contracts. You are all dismissed. If you do not disperse immediately, he will call for the authorities. You and your fellow workers stand your ground. You will not be moved. The owner simply shrugs, and then he puts his most powerful weapon into play. He sends the foreman to the factory gates. Where? As always, a great crowd of the desperate and the unemployed has gathered, begging for a day's work. The foreman shouts to them that there are jobs available for any man willing to work, and that the strikers have all been sacked. This is the moment your fragile solidarity shatters against the hard rock of reality. You watch in horror and rage as other poor, hungry men, men from your own class, begin to cross your picket line, their faces a mixture of shame and desperate need. They are called scabs, blacklegs. They are traitors to your cause, but you know that their children are just as hungry as yours. The great, endless supply of desperate labor is the weapon the masters will always use to break you. Shouting erupts. Scuffles break out as the striking workers try to block the scabs from entering the factory. The situation quickly turns ugly, and that is when the authorities arrive. It is not just the local constables. The factory owner has friends in high places, a contingent of the local militia. The yeomanry arrives on horseback. They are the sons of local merchants and landowners, and they look down on your ragged, striking mob with open contempt. The riot act is read, a formal proclamation ordering you to disperse. The crowd, now angry and feeling betrayed, does not move. The commander of the yeomanry gives an order. The horsemen draw their sabers, and they charge. The scene descends into a terrifying, bloody chaos. The mounted soldiers ride into the unarmed crowd, their sabers rising and falling. Men scream. People are trampled under the horses' hooves. You are caught in the stampede, pushed and shoved, the air filled with cries of pain and terror. This is not a negotiation. It is a massacre in miniature. This is the state, with its monopoly on violence, coming down squarely on the side of the factory owner. On the side of property and profit, historians will debate the reasons for this for centuries. Was the state simply the executive committee of the ruling class, as a future philosopher will put it, or was its action driven by a deep and genuine fear of revolution? A fear that any gathering of the working poor was a potential mob that could threaten the very foundations of society. You do not know. You only know the sting of the flat of a saber on your back as you flee for your life. The strike is broken. It is crushed. In the aftermath, the leaders of your fledgling union are rounded up and arrested. They are charged with conspiracy and riot. Many will be transported to the penal colonies in Australia. A sentence that is a slow, living death. You and everyone else who participated in the strike are blacklisted. Your names are distributed to every other factory owner in the city. You are now unemployable. A week later, your family is evicted from your cellar room. You could not pay the rent. You find yourself on the street with your few miserable possessions piled onto a handcart. You have no job. You have no home. You have no hope. You have stood up for your rights, and you have lost everything. You stand on a street corner. Your family huddled around you, in the same position you were in when you first arrived in this great, terrible city years ago. But you are different now. The naive hope that once fueled you is gone, replaced by a cold, hard, and bitter understanding of the world. You have learned the final, brutal lesson of your plight. The machine is not just the iron and steam in the factory. The machine is the entire system of property and law and power. It is a machine designed to use you, to break you, and to discard you. And there is nowhere left to run. The strike is broken. Your brief, desperate dream of a fairer wage, of a life with a sliver of dignity, has been crushed under the hooves of the yeomanry's horses and the cold indifference of your employer. The leaders of your nascent union are arrested, their names added to a blacklist that will ensure they never work in this city again. You and everyone else who stood on that picket line are summarily dismissed. You are now unemployed, unemployable, and soon to be homeless. The years that follow are a blur of hardship that makes your previous life seem almost comfortable. You are forced to leave the city, to change your name, to find work in a different town, in a different factory, one that is perhaps even darker, dirtier, and more dangerous than the last. The great machine has spit you out, and you have been forced to crawl back into its gears. A broken and more compliant part? Time passes. The seasons of your life are no longer marked by the harvest or the festivals of the countryside, but by the relentless, grinding rhythm of the factory. You are no longer a boy. You are a man. And now, you are an old man. You are perhaps 45. But your body feels as if it has endured 80 years of hard living. Your life of labor has been written onto your body. a terrible text of industrial misery. You have become a different person. Your story, and the story of the industrial age, is etched into the very fiber of your being. It is in the permanent, deep stoop of your back, a curve ground into your spine by decades of leaning over a machine. It is in your hands, which are gnarled and twisted, the joints swollen with pain. Your maimed left hand a constant, aching reminder of a moment of fatigue 40 years ago. It is in your lungs. You have a cough, a deep, wet, and constant companion that never leaves you. It is a hacking, rattling sound that brings up a thick, gray phlegm, tinged with the black dust of the factory. It is brown lung, bisonosis, the disease of the textile worker, a gift from a lifetime of breathing in fine cotton dust. Every breath is a struggle, a shallow, wheezing effort, and it is in your ears. The world has grown quiet, muffled, and distant. The deafening roar of the machines, which you endured for so long, has finally won its war against your senses. You are nearly deaf. The only sound that is still clear is the constant, high-pitched ringing in your own head, the ghost of a million spinning spindles. You watch your grandchildren's mouths move, but you cannot hear their laughter. You are a man who has been comprehensively broken by his work. You are the human cost of progress. You walk through the city, and you see the fruits of the age you helped to build. You see the great, magnificent railway stations, the iron bridges spanning the river, the shops filled with cheap, plentiful cotton cloth, the very cloth you spent your life creating. You see the wealth, the power, the undeniable might of the British Empire, an empire built on steam, on iron, and on the sacrificed bodies of millions of men, women and children like you. Historians will one day hold a great debate about your life. The optimist school will argue that this great, painful transformation you endured ultimately led to a higher standard of living, to the wealth and the comforts of the modern world. The pessimist school will argue that your generation suffered a catastrophic decline in its quality of life, trading the organic poverty of the countryside for the diseased, squalid, and dehumanizing poverty of the industrial slum. This debate about whether the Industrial Revolution was worth the price will continue for centuries. You do not need to read their books. You are the price. You are too old and too sick to work in the factory now. Your hacking cough and your trembling hands make you a liability, an inefficient part to be discarded. You are dismissed. Your long years of service rewarded with nothing. Your final destination is the workhouse. This is the last, great, terrifying institution of the Victorian age. A final, crushing humiliation for the poor and the destitute. It is not a charity. It is a prison for the crime of poverty. You enter its grim gates, and you are stripped of the last vestiges of your identity. You are separated from your wife. You are given a rough, scratchy uniform. Your days are spent in pointless, mindless labor breaking rocks or picking oakum for no other reason than to make your life so unpleasant that no one would ever choose to be here. You sit on your hard cot in the great, cold, silent dormitory of the workhouse. You are surrounded by the other broken, used-up men of your generation, all of you discarded by the great machine you built. You look out the high, barred window in the distance. You can see the smokestacks of the factories, still belching their black smoke into the gray sky. A whistle blows, signaling the end of another long workday, and you see them, a stream of small figures, pouring from the factory gates. It is a new generation of children, and among them, you see your own grandson, a small boy of 10, his face already smudged with soot, his body already stooped with a weariness that is far too old for his years. The cycle is beginning again. You have given your health, your hearing, your youth, your entire life to the factory. And now, the factory is ready to consume your grandson. The machine is eternal. It is always hungry, and it will always find more lives to feed it. The image of the old man, a broken cog in a great machine, fades into the past. The sound of the factory whistle, the roar of the looms, the cough of a lung filled with dust, let them all dissolve into the gentle, peaceful quiet of your own room. The story of the industrial worker is a story of immense suffering, but it is also a story of a world that no longer exists. Thanks in part to the very struggles that men like him endured, bring your mind back to the present moment, to the comfort and the safety that surrounds you. Feel the simple, profound peace of a quiet room at the end of the day. Feel the clean air you breathe. Your labor today, whatever it was, did not threaten to maim you. Your home is a sanctuary, not a source of sickness. Your life is your own. The world we live in, with its weekends, its safety standards, its basic human rights, was not a gift. It was built, slowly and painfully, over the broken bodies and the shortened lives of generations of people like the man in our story. Their suffering was the foundation for our comfort. But that struggle is over. For tonight, your own day is done. There are no more machines to tend, no more whistles to obey. You are in a place of perfect peace and security. Allow your mind to let go of the grim images of the past and to embrace the soft, gentle reality of the present. Allow yourself to rest and to drift into a deep and well-earned sleep.